Picture this. What happens when a totally boring, everyday corporate tool, like, say, a mandatory compliance training quiz, is quietly weaponized against the exact employees who just exposed a cover-up? Yeah, it's an incredibly tense, uncomfortable scenario. In today's Explainer, we're diving straight into how this invisible brand of workplace retaliation actually plays out, and, more importantly, exactly how it gets caught. We're looking at a wild case study called The Training Quiz That Failed the Right People. We're going to map out this massive story of retaliation by policy. We'll see how just one tiny, easily ignored digital record ended up completely dismantling a very polished corporate cover-up. If you've ever had that sinking feeling that a system was being rigged against you, well, you're going to want to pay close attention to the evidence we're laying out today. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The Illusion of Normalcy. You know, every solid cover-up starts out by pretending to be incredibly boring. Here, the retaliation arrived disguised as a totally standard administrative update, a new ethics training quiz. Naturally, when employees started noticing things were a bit off, leadership deployed a classic line. They said, "Be careful not to turn every inconsistency into a personal war." Now, that sounds like gentle mentorship, right? Almost tearing, but make no mistake, it is pure toxic pressure. It's perfectly designed to frame a totally legitimate concern as a personal overreaction. It essentially forces the person asking the questions to feel like they are the ones making things awkward. So we have this massive gap between corporate theater and the actual, undeniable truth. On one side, the official explanation is throwing around all these classic buzzwords, alignment, team outcome, you know the drill. But on the flip side, this system reality, the raw metadata, was literally screaming a completely different story. We're talking altered timestamps, changing document owners, and totally missing approvals. Because listen, people can line a conference room. Systems, however, they leave a trail. Which brings us to Section 2, following the digital footprints. Now, this is where the investigation team, led by strategy lead Maya Carter, absolutely shifted gears. They stopped listening to the vibe of the room and started digging straight into the data. Because when a room of executives suddenly rushes to sweep things under the rug, you really have to ask yourself, who actually benefits from that speed? Maya built this brilliant, methodical proof map. Step 1, identify the object. Step 2, track down the owner. Step 3, check the exact timestamp. Step 4, flag any missing approvals. And Step 5, identify the affected employee. Now, on their own, none of these look super dramatic, but when you piece them together before leadership even has time to panic and rewrite the narrative, it creates a flawless, clean path from the action straight back to the owner. And she wasn't alone. An executive assistant named Nina knew that invisible office work still leaves behind decisive traces. So she went in and pulled calendar invites, saved drafts, delivery receipts, the works. And the kicker here? Even when the status of those items was hidden or deleted, the metadata was still sitting right there. Nina basically brought all this hidden context to the surface, proving that this sudden change to the quiz was absolutely not some isolated innocent mistake. It was part of a deliberate, calculated pattern. Section 3. The confrontation. All right, the tension is peaking now. The team takes all this digital proof and marches it directly into the leadership committee. And picture this, it's this incredibly tense, silent confrontation where they let the documents do all the talking. Then, an analyst named Aisha looks dead at the committee and asks this one pivotal question: who benefits if this stays classified as harmless? Man, the room just shrinks. All those office lies that survived on vague ideas of team alignment, they completely collapse the second Aisha forces everyone to acknowledge that this little error had a very specific real-world beneficiary. So, Maya steps up and lays the evidence out, literally page by page. On the left, the original record. Sitting right next to it, on the right, the changed version. Only now, it's suspiciously missing names and features completely altered parameters. Maya didn't even need to raise her voice. She just placed the files side by side. She let the undeniable, cold logic of the data do all the heavy lifting for her. And that leads us to Section 4, the smoking gun. This is the absolute climax of the entire investigation. An IT audit specialist named Jordan steps in and starts translating these raw, cryptic server logs into just undeniable proof. And the sequence of events he uncovers breaks the case wide open. Check this out. Day 1, the new ethics quiz gets deployed. Day 3, several employees officially file complaints about past toxic behavior from management. Then, Day 4, the quiz scoring key is secretly altered. The system's own timeline proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this wasn't just some random administrative glitch. Let's just stop and really look at this, because this is the crucial point Jordan uncovered. The scoring key was edited after the complaints were filed. Just let that sink in for a second. The compliance training was deliberately, intentionally weaponized to specifically fail the exact employees who had just blown the whistle. The process itself was used defensively to sabotage their internal records. I mean, wow, it is a massive, chilling discovery. And just to make absolutely certain that leadership couldn't brush this off as, a bizarre server glitch or a technical fluke, Nina came back with 2 separate supporting background records. And these records independently confirmed Jordan's exact timeline. Finding that second supporting record, that removed every single shred of doubt. It took an isolated mistake and turned it into a confirmed, undeniable architectural pattern of retaliation. Game over. Section 5. Architecture over apology. So the cover-up is fully exposed. Now, the usual corporate response here would be a very quiet, behind-closed-doors apology, right? But Maya and the independent board completely shut that down. They refused a private fix and demanded structural, systemic repair. They literally wrote actionable mechanics straight into the company's code. We're talking forced actions: preserve, notify, correct, attach, name, audit. They structured the system so it now has no choice but to leave public footprints. Because at the end of the day, a system that can't tell you who built the work or who altered a file, that's simply not a fair system. This right here is the ultimate public correction. Compliance training cannot become a retaliation filter. A workplace only becomes safer when names cannot be quietly erased and credit cannot be stolen by middle management. They made the correction just as public as the damage was in the first place, proving that trust is only ever real when it is hard-coded right into the system. I really want to leave you with this lingering lesson from the explainer today. The record did not raise its voice. It simply waited for someone patient enough to read it. The truth in a workplace rarely arrives as some dramatic, movie-style monologue. It usually arrives as a timestamp, just sitting there, patient enough to outlive the lie. So, I want you to think about your own workplace systems for a second. Are your digital traces protecting the truth, or are they just covering up a polished lie? Because remember, every single file has a timestamp, and every timestamp is a witness. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes open, watch your digital footprints, and I will see you next time as we uncover more hidden stories.